I'm Ann Crayville. I'm the CEO of the Art Bridges Foundation, and we're so glad you are joining us today as we explore the many ways our partners across the country are sharing powerful works of American art with their communities. Today's conversation is going to spotlight some inspiring projects that exemplify the spirit of collaboration and impact at the heart of our mission. We are going to begin by hearing from Jonathan Frederick Walz, PhD and Director of Curatorial Affairs and Curator of American Art at the Columbus Museum in Georgia. This was recently named Best New Museum of 2025 by USA Today, so if you have not been, try to make a trip over there. He is going to share some of the museum's experience with borrowing through our partner loan network and how working with Art Bridges has expanded their exhibition possibilities. Then next, we will hear from Dr. Beth Harris and Dr. Stephen Zucker, executive directors and co-founders of Smarthistory, the world's most visited art history resource. It's essentially replacing all college textbooks, and I know every curator, every art historian has been using it as a resource. It provides free essays, videos, teaching guides created by leading art historians and curators, making art history more accessible to students, educators, and the public alike. I've had the privilege of working with the two of them on their Seeing America project, and we're really excited to continue working with them and hear how they share how museums of all sizes can leverage these resources and deepen engagement with their community. And then finally, our very own Dr. Javier Rivero Ramos, Associate Curator of Art Bridges. I'm sorry I didn't get those R's rolled in there, Javier, but he will introduce himself and his lovely last name and give you an inside look at the new traveling exhibition, I Refuse to Be Invisible, Self-Portraiture Across American Art. This show, it's the first group exhibition that is drawn from Art Bridges' collection. So it's a really great way to bring works from our collection into a curated, incredible exhibition around self-portraiture that both questions and celebrates visibility and representation in American society. So throughout the webinar today, please go ahead, put your questions in the chat. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you an overview of Art Bridges. For those of you who have heard this before, apologies. If you have, and even if you haven't, actually go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. We would love to know who's with us today, where you're from, what institution you work for. So as many of you know, Art Bridges was created by Alice Walton, who believes in access to art, and that art is hope, it's opportunity, it's education, it's all of the things we want. Came to be because of her vision for Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in her hometown of Bentonville, Arkansas. This was created, because she didn't have incredible access to art growing up. The nearest art museum to Bentonville was Tulsa, 2 hours away. Kansas City, Little Rock, both over 3 hours away. So now we have this incredible facility in her hometown, and it's just really been a gateway to the region and has welcomed around 750,000 visitors annually. Has been opened since 2011. But when she created this institution, she did so with very minimal storage, and she did that on purpose. She did not believe that art could exist without a viewer. And so this challenge of keeping art in storage versus putting it out in the public really planted the seed for Art Bridges, where if 95% of the collections in the nation are in storage, could she create a foundation that would actually help give capacity and financial support to get those artworks out and redistributed with museums who maybe have great core collections, but not the ability to acquire or even the funds to borrow? So our mission is, pretty straightforward. We deliver access to meaningful experiences with art for personal and community well-being. Access is at the heart of everything that we do here. And what we do, we partner with museums to provide strategic and financial support to get American art out of storage and into communities nationwide through our innovative and collaborative programs. And the whole purpose of this is beyond just art lending. It's really to empower art museums to collaborate more effectively. So we don't want just peer-to-peer art lending anymore. We want small institutions, large institutions working together, dismantling their silos, both internally and externally, and developing flexible solutions to overcome barriers of access, ensuring that museums are inclusive for everyone. So the vision is much, much larger than just art sharing itself. So to date, we actually, our most accurate number is we have 327 museum partners across the country of various sizes. 1,500 plus projects across the nation impacting more than 25 million people. And we do this through two program pillars that you will learn mostly about the art sharing pillar today and the community engagement in terms of our Smart History content. But everything starts with some sort of an art sharing initiative, and then we provide funding in the form of a grant to activate those artworks, and believe that those two pillars coming together really increase access to art and people making meaningful experiences. Okay, and that is our introduction to Art Bridges. Thanks for all of the intros in the chat. If you have questions when we jump into our next presentation, please just put them in the chat. I'll monitor them and help facilitate those conversations. So we are going to shift our focus to the Partner Loan Network. This is very much the North Star of what Art Bridges does. We work with institutions to get small groupings of art out of storage. We provide the costs for the crating, the shipping, the insurance, all the things that make loans really costly. We also provide the cost to or a grant, I should say, to the lending institution, just so they have the time and capacity to be able to develop checklists with us. And then for every partner loan network grouping that we lend, the borrowing institution is also, as I said, eligible for learning and engagement funding. So you can learn more about that on our website as well. But Jonathan Frederick Walz from the Columbus Museum of Art in Georgia is going to share more about how his institution borrowed through the Partner Loan Network and how working with Art Bridges has expanded their exhibition possibilities. So I'll turn it over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm going to walk us through how we have engaged with two groupings from the Museum of Modern Art. There's kind of at least two ways to kind of slice and dice these loans. And one is you can mix them in with the permanent collection, or you can kind of do a small standalone exhibition. And we did one of each. So I'm going to start with the MoMA grouping of work from the 1920s and 1930s. This is the Thomas Hart Benton that was in the Room of the Four Seasons, paired with a Savannah artist, Hattie Saucy. Kuniyoshi self-portrait, one of only two that he ever created, here in the middle, in conversation with our Alice Neal double portrait, and a portrait by a local artist, Edward Shorter, on the right. This is another way we were able to make local connections. The MoMA loan is on the left. It's late 30s Ad Reinhardt, and paired it with a William Christenberry wall piece that was commissioned by the museum, and it is called Columbus Wall. And then last but not least, and I'm not showing all of the loans, but just some highlights, we received this really great Niall Spencer precisionist painting, Street Scene, on the left, and we paired it with our Winfried Rembert Street Scene, and we claim him as his hometown museum, as he did not grow up very far from here. And then we took the second group of loans, which were all American surrealists, and I used it as an opportunity to accomplish several goals. One was that I wanted to make it clear to our audience, who might kind of think not knowing too much about surrealism, and kind of Magritte and Dali casting very long shadows in how people think about surrealism. I wanted to make it clear that American surrealists had a lot to contribute to this movement. So moving away from these two very famous paintings to what we call it America Fantastica, Memories, Dreams, and Chants. It's in two galleries. So this is a very close-up of the title wall. Here's a general view. You can see we used the education grant money to make a lot of interactives, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is now, I guess. We commissioned a computer programmer to come up with an electronic version, digital version of the Exquisite Corpse game. And so folks are allowed to draw their own body parts. They're screened before then. They're put into kind of a big pool that kind of circulates throughout the day. And you can see someone has drawn a head on the monitor to the left. We also used it to highlight our permanent collection. The Columbus Museum started collecting magic realist and surrealist art almost as soon as it opened in 1953. These are 3 drawings from the permanent collection that are intended as inspiration for the drawing activities that are by the table that you kind of caught a glance of earlier. So this is looking into from the interactive room into the larger gallery with many, many more works of art. And there's the intro text. This is a general view of the exhibition we came up with. This just kind of worked out. Curators on the call will know, you have to kind of move things around so that they are in the right places. And the MoMA loans tended to cluster here. So on the left, we have a Jimmy Ernst and a great Kay Sage, a large Yves Tanguy over a Peter Bloom. And then I'm always forgetting this other artist, so I'm going to skip. But they all sort of occurred on this one wall. There was a large cluster of them. We also took advantage of the Art Bridges collection itself to include 2 other related works. So a very surrealist inspired Norman Lewis painting early on the left, and a great Huey Lee Smith painting on the right. And then also, again, to highlight the permanent collection, the bottom painting on the left was acquired in 1955. That's the work I was thinking about in terms of just after we opened. The work on the right is by a woman artist, Ruth Ray. It was so popular when it was first displayed at the museum that there was this groundswell from the public to make sure the painting stayed in Columbus. And then another goal was to cultivate a particular private collector in the area. And so we borrowed his Doris Lindo Lewis painting, which is there on the top left. And of course, I wanted to kind of get in some didactics as well. So figuring folks would have some questions about why the museum, the layout of the show was the way that it was. I talk about on this extended label, we derived kind of the design sense based on this Joseph Cornell collage. This issue of View magazine was really the first kind of introduction of surrealism in America to the general public. And then we also used a lot of string to make a reference to this great project by Marcel Duchamp in the first papers of Surrealism exhibition, where he basically created obstruction for visitors to try and get to the artwork. Of course, we did not go that far, but we were inspired by that. And so I just wanted to say thank you. These were really great loans for us. The Surrealism show is up for a while longer. The interactives have been really well used. It's been very popular. So I just wanted to say on behalf of the institution, thank you to Art Bridges and MoMA for making these really well-received community experiences possible.
Great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Lots of really great feedback on those on the Exquisite Corpse interaction. Looks like a lot of fun. So if you all are interested in seeing what other groupings we have available, we have groupings from all kinds of institutions over the centuries of American art. And we would love to partner with you to loan some and have you activate your collections and exhibitions in new ways. So we are now going to shift gears and we are going to explore an incredible resource that can support museums of all sizes in deepening audience engagement. Again, thrilled to introduce Beth Harris and Stephen Zucker, executive directors and co-founders of Smarthistory, the world's most visited art history resource. Through their work, they've made art history accessible to millions through, I mean, literally millions, through free essays, videos, and guides created by leading art historians and curators. So Beth and Stephen, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Anne.
Hold on
Stephen,
just
you have the
one
slides?
sec.
Yep.
Let me get this going.
In the meantime, I'll say, Jonathan, that was so exciting, and we can't wait to visit Columbus soon. And it was fun to see the paintings on the walls, some of which we've actually made videos of, the Norman Lewis and the U.E. Smith. So it was really great to see them out there. And so just a giant thank you to Art Bridges for inviting us today and having an opportunity to talk about what we do and how we can work with small museums, large museums, and how we love to collaborate on art history and make art history accessible.
And please don't hesitate to say something if the slides are not advancing or I make this go haywire in any other way. Okay.
All of which is possible.
We've just revamped the Smart History website, so we can't help but show it off a little bit. This is the top of our new website, and that's where we highlight our newest content, whether or not it's video or essay.
Yeah, I love that slide because you can see the variety of work that we're doing at Smart History. And Art Bridges' work there on the far right. Now I'm not going to remember. Javier, help me.
Fritz Shoulder, Indian
Thank
rug.
you. Fritz Shoulder.
It's a spectacular painting.
It's a spectacular, very fun painting. So do you want to go to the next slide? Yes. So here's our mission. Our mission is just very similar to the Art Bridges mission, to make art accessible, to make it allow people to have more profound, more interesting and compelling experiences with art. We have 800 academic contributors, but Smart History is about making art history accessible and fun and engaging. And so the site is very much for a general, broad audience from ages 15 to retirees. It's also important to say that Smart History is not just me and Stephen. It's a giant group of curators, professors, archaeologists, conservators. You know, we really love collaborating and working with people who have different expertise. And at this point, Smart History has more than 4,500 resources. That includes videos and essays.
And I just want to point out that the YouTube subscriber is already happily out of date. We're over 352,000, I think. Yeah. And this whole sort of introduction is just meant to hopefully get people in the audience to want to work with Smart History.
So in addition, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So in addition to having our channel on YouTube and smarthistory.org, we're also the official provider for art history on Khan Academy, which is really important to us because a lot of people go to Khan Academy to use, yes, those are our voices. I was just looking. A lot of folks go to Khan Academy to learn algebra or something. And so we hope that they discover art history in the meantime. In fact, we just got a lovely email from someone who said, my mother always made me study math on Khan Academy, but I always ended up at art history on Khan Academy, which was really lovely.
Another important venue for us is YouTube. This is where we host most of our content, our video content, and as you can see, 352,000 subscribers. That doesn't mean that every video gets that much, but that's the base. And it's a different audience, so it's an important audience for us. And if you look just down, Javier was the other voice on the Tamayo, and the Noguchi is in Crystal Bridges. So a couple of things locally.
And
Beth, do you want me to do this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, all right. So I tend to do the statistical stuff. So it's as I sort of, it's just incredible to us. We're university professors originally, although with museum experience at the Museum of Modern Art. And we used to teach maybe a few hundred students every year. And last year there were 60 million page views on of Smart History content across all of our channels. And I just want to explain a little bit about what's going on the right. If you drill down a bit, the analytics that I'm showing are just from smarthistory.org, and that was 2.2 in the last 30 days, 2.2 million views in the last 30 days. But the statistic that I'm really proud of is the average duration, because as you know, people just click, right? And people just fly through content. But the average session duration during that period was almost 6 minutes, which is kind of unheard of on the web. And the map on the left is simply sort of the densest areas of viewership. About 50% of our viewers come from the United States, and the other 50% are distributed across the world. And this is when, there we go.
So Smart History has been around for more than 20 years. And you're looking at actually our very first website on the left, which was quite primitive. And we've gone through many iterations since then. The one on the right is from 2010. And we just introduced, as we mentioned, a new version of the website. And so, you know, this idea of iterative development and of listening to our partners, our museum partners, our institutional partners, and listening to teachers and students and making adjustments as we go along.
Just a quick list of our institutional partners, but but I want to just highlight Art Bridges. It has been an incredible privilege to work with the Art Bridges Foundation. The entire staff is just amazing, incredibly dedicated. But their mission, as was mentioned, is so closely aligned to our own and so incredibly important to move art out of the storerooms and into areas across the country where people always have art close to them. It couldn't be sort of closer to our heart. We are thrilled to work with Art Bridges.
And there you go, the Art Bridges page on Smart History. We did a little search for Art Bridges, and you get all of the works of art that we've covered. And so, you know, on Smart History, the museum partners, you know, have a kind of visibility. So if we work with a museum, people can go to Smart History and search for that museum and see that, you know, a work of art or, you know, is being, you know, they've seen something in their neighborhood, in their region. And so it's, you know, an opportunity to see just how extensive the geographic reach across the country is on Smart History.
Often when we're working with Art Bridges partners, the museum will say to us, you know, we have this really wonderful local artist that we'd love to make content about. And that's something we've been able to do. And so, although the Art Bridges content may move and shift, the artwork that is local is something that can really draw people to the museum, or a different audience to the museum. And it's been just an incredible pleasure to work with Art Bridges folks. We're people involved in the Art Bridges project at museums around the country. The curators have been absolutely amazing. And I noticed when people were saying hello in the sidebar that Wendy Earle was present, and she's one of the curators that we worked with. And just an example of just brilliant curatorial work and education and educators who want nothing more than to really sort of bring audiences into their museums.
Yeah, I want to say too that, you know, when we make a Smart History video, it can be available for you to put on your own website. You can link to it. You can put it in the galleries if you want to put up some iPads or some kind of video screen like that. And so there's just lots of ways to connect audiences to the content before visiting, after visiting, and make it a really hopefully enhance that experience.
So we just wanted to just show off what some of the Art Bridges content looks like on Smart History. These are 4 different pages, and at least one of these works was visible in the previous presentation, the Norman Lewis. But these are works that where we worked with people from Akron, from the Peoria Riverfront Museum, from the Hudson River Museum, and Art Bridges itself.
And here's a picture of me on the left from behind, and a curator we were working with at the National Portrait Gallery. And we just wanted to show this slide because we work in a really different way from most museum videos. And so just to clarify, we're coming in with 2 pieces of equipment. That's it. So no lights, no booms, nothing to plug in. Very easy. A couple of aging art historians and a camera and an audio recorder. And so we're making videos, but we're making them from edited audio and edited photos and ancillary materials and putting them together. So no one is ever on camera, which most people find to be a huge relief. We stand in front of the object like I'm doing here. We record, you can see I'm holding the audio recorder. We record for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, have an unscripted, natural conversation. We come back and edit that audio down to between 4 and 8 minutes to tell a really tight story. The museum has an opportunity to listen to the audio and make any suggestions, and then we put it together with the images. The museum has another opportunity to review and listen and make suggestions, and then the video gets published on Smarthistory, on Khan Academy, on YouTube, and we can also make the video available to museums. And so it's really a very, very streamlined process, usually about an hour per work of art.
I should say that that accessibility is at the heart of everything we do. So we want to get these videos out there on as many venues as possible. We use a Creative Commons license to do this, and Smarthistory itself has no ads. It's completely accessible. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to register. There are no barriers. Our idea was back in the old days when you could simply especially with a museum that was free, where you could simply just walk in and go see the art with nothing in between you and the artwork. And so that's very much what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, a lot of people say it's fun afterwards. They get a little nervous, but we have a very fun, unscripted conversation about objects that everyone's very familiar with. And actually, it turns out to be a really fun process.
And we hope that we've inspired you to reach out and say hello and perhaps talk to us about working together. We would love to come to your museum. We would love to visit you. So please do be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth and Stephen. It's an incredible resource, and what I love is that you do bring in, all of these different curatorial voices when we have loans out there. So, that idea of like, this is my collection or the authority is not tethered to the institution, which is great. So yeah, if you borrow from our collection, you have this resource available at your fingertips that you can share with your visitors. And as Beth and Stephen said, reach out to them and explore what a partnership might look like. We are going to now turn it over to Javier Rivero Ramos, ArtBridge's Associate Curator, who brings deep expertise in American art. He's also a sommelier, just in case you need a little bit of tips and wine. He is a thoughtful curatorial vision. It brings us thoughtful curatorial vision to his work. He is the curator of I Refuse to Be Invisible, Self-Portraiture Across American Art, which is the first group exhibition drawn from our collection that both questions and celebrates visibility and representation in American society. So Javier, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Anne. Thank you. And at the risk of sounding repetitious, I will introduce myself again. My name is Javier Rivero Ramos, Associate Curator. And today I have the enormous privilege to introduce you all and walk you through I Refuse to Be Invisible, Self-Portraiture Across American Art. This exhibition, the first group show featuring works drawn primarily from the ArtBridge's collection, has been a long-standing ambition of the ArtBridge's curatorial department. This initiative has been driven both by a recognition of the need to offer high-quality exhibitions to our partners, and from the intuition that as the ArtBridge's collection grew over the years, certain threads began to weave themselves into powerful narratives worth sharing. As we like to say at Art Bridges, we collect broadly, not deeply. And even at a glance, certain trends and iconic artworks emerge. Archibald John Motley Jr.'s 1933 Myself at Work, or the 1985 Self-Portrait by Keith Haring, which is a solemn and even mournful look at himself amid the AIDS epidemic. It is plain to see that Art Bridges holds in his collection iconic self-portraits. A little less evident, less visible perhaps, is a strain of works that push the disciplinary boundaries of what art historians would conventionally call a self-portrait, and invite us to consider how, over the course of centuries, artists have called into question the mechanisms through which the self is made visible. In 2010, Nigerian-born LA-based artist Njeka Kunyoli Crosby gave an interview to curator Cheryl Broodman, where they discussed the work that had been described as one of Crosby's first mature works, I Refuse to Be Invisible, where the name of the show is drawn from. In the interview, Crosby mentioned that she had been thinking about Ralph Ellison's 1952 novel, Invisible Man, in relation to her own experience as an immigrant. And she said, I quote, I refuse to be invisible, meaning I don't want to not exist due to the lack of representation, end quote. And we just saw an image of the work there. She goes on to describe the image of this young Black woman whose outline is barely perceptible against the background as nebulous and undefined at a distance, but fully present when engaged with attentively, up close. In a different interview, she described this work paradoxically as a self-portrait. And the crux of this identification is not the semblance of the young woman at the center of the work, but rather the warp and weft woven by the photographs from her family archive that Njeka then prints and transfers into the fabric of this woman's world. It is an index tying the surface of the canvas directly to those scenes that unfolded in front of the camera's lens and the photosensitive surface. It's the scenes that both nebulously and concretely make up Njeka. From this intersection, and for this intersection of thoughts, a question kind of emerged, and that is, what happens when artists claim visibility through self-portraiture while simultaneously pushing the boundaries of the genre to render visible the complexity of the self, particularly in a dynamic and ever-changing society? I Refuse to Be Invisible, self-portrait American Self-Portraiture Across American Art explores the self-portrait as both an affirmative claim for visibility and a challenge against the mechanisms of visualization and representation that have, over the course of history, lifted certain bodies into visibility while casting others into darkness. The exhibition draws a broad chronological, cultural, and stylistic arc across 2 centuries of American art. It offers both a foundational panorama of the tenets of self-portraiture, as well as works that seek to challenge those tenets. And while some of the works on the show rely on likeness and are instantly recognizable as a self-portrait, others reimagine identity through forms of representation that do not rely on similitude and may not even feature an identifiable human figure. Consider, for instance, these 2 works by 2 of the most canonical American portraitists, 2 unapologetic and unmerciful self-examinations by artists looking back at their careers, but also looking forward to their mortality. We have here the last self-portrait series made by Andy Warhol, and also one of only 2 known extant self-portraits by Thomas Eakins. This work in particular is being lent to the exhibition by our dear colleagues from the National Academy of Design. In 1839, the National Academy of Design reformed its bylaws and made it a requisite that artists would need to submit a self-portrait for enrollment as full academicians, resulting in one of the most storied, rich, and coolest collections of self-portraiture in the country. That is rivaled, in fact, in size only by the National Portrait Gallery. The exhibition features over half a dozen loans from this unparalleled collection of self-portraits, as well as several works from the collection of our sibling organization, the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. And these 2 works obviously partake and address a tradition of self-portraiture that goes back to Rembrandt or Caravaggio. But on the next slide, I'd invite you to consider as well works such as Cindy Sherman's iconic Untitled Film Still series, where she photographed herself under various guises to both critically probe and disarm nefarious stereotypes that were upheld by the culture industry. Or maybe a work such as this 1975 work by T.C. Cannon entitled Grandmother, Gestating Father, and the Wichita river runs on ribbon-like, a work where Cannon casts a retrospective eye at his own intimate and familial history to memorialize a woman that in a poem he described as, quote, a maiden of the eternal circle, a specific angelus of some intensely burning theology, and just a beautiful poem. And then finally, consider this abstract work by MacArthur Binion in the next slide. It is part of the DNA series. The work is composed of color copies of an address book that Binion kept since 1972 that were printed, cut, and then tiled into a gridded surface that refracts and abstracts and distills Binion's life over the course of decades. The exhibition is structured along 4 thematic nuclei that both showcase iconic American self-portraits and challenge the conventions of that genre. And we can move ahead to the next slide. The first section offers emblematic self-portraits to introduce audiences to the conventions of the genre, and it features artists such as Warhol, Archibald John Motley Jr., Keith Haring, Cecilia Beau, among others. The second one presents artists who explore and challenge stereotypes and includes Cindy Sherman, Maria Hernandez, and Jacques Goulield, among others. The third section features artists such as Lorena Grady, Will Wilson, John Quincy C. Smith, whose work depicts selfhood through ancestral and historical retrospection. And the fourth and final nuclei delves fully into forms of visual representation that do not rely on likeness, resemblance, or similitude to portray an individual, and includes works by like Charles Wilbur White, Anna Mendieta, Vanessa German, Robert Rauschenberg, and my favorite one, Alinka Clayton, titled 43 Objects That I Pulled Out of My Child's Mouth, which to me strikes me as the perfect self-portrait of a young parent. The next slide, Art Bridges is, as you know, committed to making exhibitions accessible by offering substantial funding support. Borrowing venues receive funding to cover 20 to 70% of shared and local exhibition costs, along with dedicated learning and engagement funding to support related programming and community outreach. Our incredible traveling exhibitions team will assist with project proposals, budget planning, curatorial consultation, and more. This includes support for educational workshops, community outreach, interpretive materials, virtual programming, translation services, honoraria, and more. We welcome museums of different sizes that are committed to expanding access to American art and engaging diverse audiences nationwide. The loan period is around 6 months, but obviously the specific concrete duration will be determined collaboratively based on your venue's needs and the overall timeline of the show. The exhibition requires approximately 3,500 to 5,000 square feet of gallery space, but we welcome the borrowing institutions to incorporate self-portraits from their own collection. Oftentimes, these are works that are very dear to an audience, so seeing them in a new context, one that contributes to the historical and curatorial framework of the show, would be a fantastic possibility. So if you go to our next slide, I have already kind of alluded to some of this. So what is next? Every collaboration obviously begins with a conversation. Reached out. We would be delighted to hear from you. And thank you very much. That was my spiel. And if you also need wine recommendations, I'd be also delighted to provide you with some.
Amazing. Thank you, Javier. I don't see any questions in the chat, but we've just put in the chat the exhibitions email, so exhibitions@artbridgesfoundation.org. You can also email partnerships@artbridgesfoundation.org if you have any questions. But I just want to thank everybody for joining us today and thank our panelists for all of this incredible information. And I hope everyone has a great, rest of your Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.